Coming up next.
I don't really know what clandestine lodges are. I've just heard of them. But it's my understanding that if you belong to one, you can't belong to a regular lodge.
So the public may well be confusing the Grand Lodge Masons with the clandestine.
Oh, yeah, very likely.
On Beyond.
Shadow governments, knights of Christianity, satanic worshippers, guardians of the secrets of the pyramids, the Old Testament, the Templars, the Holy Grail, the Ark of the Covenant, and even alien invaders. Fathers of piracy, founders of the most powerful democracy in history, and murderous cultists. Benign benefactors, supporters of the faith, pious and good men, old guys in funny hats. Hard to believe that so many conflicting impressions could be formed about one single organization. But the fact is that the Masons have been around for a long time. Their own belief dates back to Enoch, before the flood. Any organization, religion, or monarchy that survives for thousands of years has the capability of being all those things. Monsters and saints. Add secrecy into the mix, and imagination can also do a lot. So what is the truth of this secret fraternity and their influence upon the world? For any who have seen recent episodes of Beyond, it is clear that there have been some deep secrets that have been kept for hundreds of years and evolved into the status of myth or legend. Secrets that have led to such fictions as the Da Vinci Code. But although the author of the Da Vinci Code has admitted to its fiction, the secrets that inspired the fiction are real and not to be dismissed. Tonight on Beyond, we have taken our cameras into a Masonic temple and interviewed a Master Mason. This is perhaps one of the first television programs ever to do so with such candid results. And we can say that, at least in part, we have been able to open that veil of secrecy and shed light on some of the realities that hide between two famous pillars and beyond.
Serious study of the Masons, it is important to understand the structure of the society. The Grand Lodge is the official umbrella organization. The Shrine is a limb, as is the Eastern Star. There are also the Red Lodges. The Red Lodges hold many of the secrets that relate to the Christian mysteries and the Knights Templar.
Enoch believed the world was going to end and built two markers for that outcome. He didn't know whether it would end by flood or fire, but he knew it was going to end in one way or the other. So he built two markers, one to withstand water and one to withstand fire. And after the flood, descendants of these Masons then found the marker and dug up these secrets from before the flood. Possibly when they found these treasures after the flood, they no longer understood what they meant. And this kind of has a lot to do with the overall Masonic story of searching for who we are and the very setting of a lodge room. And most of Masonic lore is centered on one thing: the center. This is a position from which a Mason cannot err. And what's in the center?
The key to Masonic function is their symbolism, and at the heart of their symbols is the G, which is amidst the compass and the square. The G stands for Great Architect of the Universe, their synonym for God. This is supposedly not a particular God, because the Masons are non-denominational. The only religious element required in modern Masonic practice is that a Mason must acknowledge that a higher power exists. From that core non-denominational symbol derives many other elements from which their temple is constructed.
Most of them are pretty thinly veiled, like an all-seeing eye. Some lodges use that symbol in the square and compasses, either an all-seeing eye or the letter G. So that's pretty thinly veiled, I would say. They all have a basis on truth. All of humanity is kind of on that same search for who they are. Really, when you join a Masonic lodge, you are a first degree, and then you are a second degree, and then you're a third degree. And a third degree Mason is someone they've done all the studying, and now they're a third degree Mason. That really is the total of the hierarchy. Then there is the bureaucratic hierarchy, but it doesn't really go any higher than that third degree. They are just titles that people use to signify the job that they are doing in that year. So whether they be the Grand Master, the most worshipful the Grand Master, or a worshipful master who rules his lodge, they really are, what would you say, bureaucratic titles. There really isn't any higher than a third degree Mason. No one knows where the capstone is off the Great Pyramid, but it is believed, of course, that great builders built it. Was the Great Pyramid the marker left by Enoch before the flood? I don't know. Maybe. I'm just throwing that out there.
There are many seeming Masonic symbols in public view that point to some kind of covert workings of a shadow government. Many of the most disturbing elements of shadow government point to clandestine Masons, such as the Illuminati or the Skull and Bones Society, rather than free and accepted Masons.
And so any of these stories that a person hears about governments being overthrown by Masons and so on, I suppose any batch of apples might have some bad ones, but for the most part, that would be something that would be very anti-Masonic.
If the Masons are not the source of the dark manipulations we see evidence of all the time, who is? Remember his mention of the clandestine Masons?
Both George W. Bush and his father were members of the Skull and Bones Society. And the current president appointed 11 Skull and Bones members to his administration. This society is reported to use demonic rituals and ceremonies involving the remains of dead people, similar to certain rituals used in voodoo. President Bush has on numerous occasions made the symbol of the devil in large public events, and when the press has asked him to account for this, he said that it is a hand signal made by members of the University of Texas Longhorns football team. The Longhorn hand signal is in fact quite different, and And why would a US president make such an inappropriate hand signal so often and at such seemingly important yet unconnected events? Especially considering that he never went to the University of Texas. Strangely enough, the president's colleagues and whole family seem to be supporters of the Longhorns. Let us look at the meaning of certain hand signals. This is a hand signal which is universally used as a meaning for love. Note, the thumb is exposed and perpendicular to the hand. The Texas Longhorn signal is made with the thumb and little finger. The satanic salute, which is meant to depict horns of the devil, unlike the love signal, has the thumb tucked into the hand so as not to be visible. One may also consider it odd that President Bush and his family continue to make this particular mistake when they have taken such a clear stance on Christianity. A number of lodges in history have claimed to be Masonic, such as the Golden Dawn. Aleister Crowley claimed to be a 33rd degree Mason, for example. However, this was a lie and was flatly denied by the Grand Lodge, who would not permit Crowley entry into their temples. They claimed that his training was from a bogus French clandestine lodge.
Those Masonic lodges that are clandestine and don't owe any allegiance to our Grand Lodge. They weren't following any Grand Lodge procedures that I'm aware of. And to break the law in any way is definitely against Masonic protocols. And if you belong to one, you can't belong to a regular lodge.
Over the centuries, true Masons have encountered bad press because of the actions of clandestine Masons, and still, even today, their history is confused with dark quasi-Masonic society, such as the Jesuits, the Illuminati, the Golden Dawn, and Skull and Bones Society. Some believe that the creation of the new nation of the United States was a Freemason attempt at creating a utopian power. Many of those who threw the tea in the bay were Masons.
The American Constitution and early presidents and the people who wrote the Declaration of Independence were mostly Masons. You can see Masonic wording in the text as you read it. And their whole idea of, send us your poor and your hungry, and a very Masonic type attitude. A Masonic idea is that a gift is only a gift when it's given in complete anonymity. If someone knows who the giver is, it wasn't truly a gift. And that's one of the things put forward by the Masonic organization in the training that goes about as you learn and become a third-degree Mason, is that you go in, you do what needs to be done, and you leave. You don't stand around to get thanked. I know that quite a lot of the presidents of the United States have been Masons.
Many of those who forged the Declaration of Independence were Freemasons. The first president, George Washington, was a Freemason, and 1/3 of all U.S. presidents have been confirmed Masons. Much of the U.S. currency has been designed by Masons, and Masonic symbolism is an integral part of the U.S. economy. The wording of the Declaration of Independence is based on Masonic texts. Observe also how many of the world's most powerful cities erect twin towers in the heart of their financial districts. Considering all of this, it is thought-provoking to realize that the greatest symbol of Freemason accomplishment is brought down under the watch of a man who to public knowledge is a clandestine Mason. According to a July 2006 poll conducted by Scripps News Service, 1/3 of Americans think the U.S. government either carried out the 9/11 attack or intentionally allowed them to occur in order to provide a pretext for military actions in the Middle East. 911truestory.com lays out impressive documentation for the widely held observation that the World Trade buildings fell as if demolished rather than by accident.
Anybody who's ever watched a building being demolished on purpose knows that if you're going to do this, you have to get at the under infrastructure of a building and bring it down.
Then, an hour later than that, we had that big explosion from much, much lower. I don't know what on earth caused that.
At 10:30, I tried to leave the building, but as soon as I got outside, I heard a second explosion and another rumble and more smoke.
Like, it sounded like gunfire, you know, bang, 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 and then all of a sudden, 3 big explosions. Somebody saw secondary explosions and then the subsequent collapses. Somebody saw secondary explosions and then the subsequent collapses.
I got an eyewitness who said there was an explosion on floor 7-8. 7-8. We've just had another explosion.
Warren Street because of the secondary explosion. We've got numerous people covered with dust from the secondary explosion.
And we got another explosion on the tower, 1013. Number 2 has had a major explosion and what appears to be a complete collapse surrounding the entire area. Who's involved in the secondary explosion at tower 1K? I've got 5.
And all of a sudden we hear boom! I thought it was a generator that blew up on the basement. And I said to myself, oh my God, I think it's a generator. And I was going to verbalize it. When I finished saying that in my mind, I hear boom! Right on the top, pretty far away. So it was a difference between coming from the basement and coming from the top.
There must be other examples if fires brought these buildings down. There were no examples. The probability that one of these buildings would come down due to fire, I mean, just looking at other buildings that have had fires and haven't collapsed, you know, of which there are hundreds of examples. So your probability is already 1 in perhaps 400 or 500. 3 buildings on the same day, I mean, just that one statistic, well, it's 400 times 400 times 400. You know, it's just a very small number already, the probability. And then for it to come down symmetrically, I mean, that again, the probability for that is more likely it will tip over, see? So that's the more likely. So what's the probability that somehow all 3 buildings come straight down?
Do you still think that jet fuel brought down the World Trade Center? In all the videos of the collapses, explosions can be seen bursting from the building 20 to 30 stories below the demolition wave. Here, 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 and here. Official explanation: falling debris from the Twin Towers created an internal fire, which ignited several fuel tanks inside the building. If this is true, then it would be the 3rd building in history to collapse because of a fire. The first 2 would be the Twin Towers. On July 28, 1945, a B-52 bomber lost in the fog crashed into the 79th floor of the Empire State Building. 14 people dead, $1 million in damage, but the building stands intact to this day.
Could it be that there is an immense power struggle taking place at the highest and most secretive levels of power in the world today? It is hard to imagine that such theories may be true, but the evidence itself is worthy of note. Such evidence should not be overlooked.
I would say if they have an agenda, it's definitely to better society. And Masonry claims not to make bad men good, but to make good men better. And I would say that that's true. Definitely so.
Next time on Beyond. Vampires.
Whatever the source of the elaborate symbols that infiltrate our society, it would seem that some esoteric organization is at work and wanting to be visibly invisible. What is clear to the Beyond team is that the members of the Freemasons, Shriners, and the Eastern Star, who were approved by the modern Grand Lodge, are benign. In the past 3,000 years that the Freemasons claim to be their history, it is clear that they have gone through many phases, some very extreme and dark. But one must look at the context of the times and understand how the dark histories of any religions or monarchies that have lasted for thousands of years have been. Something is going on, and what we have discovered during the making of this episode of Beyond is that this newer clandestine activity has been exerting some considerable influence on the world over the past 200 years, especially in the foundation and the development of the world's most powerful democracy. One can even see how the Masons seized the opportunity to create and operate a new country in a new world, and how that country developed into an empire in such a short period of time. But it is difficult to know where that new potential empire now sits. This, in itself, may tell the story of the struggle between the Masons and the clandestine Masons, an answer that may never be confirmed and will therefore remain hidden in the regions which lie beyond.